Whew. It's good to be home. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Do not adjust your computer screens or mobile devices. I am in a different location now. This year of school is officially over for me, so I'm back in Houston in my room right now with a bluer background than I'm used to. And I find random things like this. Don't even remember where I got this. But, yeah, that's a thing. Shouldn't have thrown that. And while technically this is not an off weekend for NASCAR, it is the AllStar Race this Saturday night. And in years past I've always kind of been hard on the AllStar Race. I've really kind of thought it was sort of unnecessary in a lot of ways. But this year with the introduction of the softer tires that they're going to allow each team to use at a certain point in the race, and then of course the play-in race where I think it's going to be 3 stages, and then whenever each stage gets a spot in the All-Star Race itself, it's going to be an interesting race, I think. And this next week will be our second straight Saturday night racing event after Kansas this past weekend. And while Kansas I thought was a very exciting race in just terms of the amount of passing, the amount of constant conflict and drama going out, people going to the back, coming to the front, going back and forth, people having problems, people taking advantage of those problems. Martin Truex Jr. with that late restart, he took 3 wide to get the lead. I thought the racing was spectacular. But again, it was a 1.5-mile racetrack where Martin Truex Jr. once again got the win, his second, I believe it's his second, yes, of the season. So far he is still the only Toyota driver to have any wins, but I guess that's not super surprising. Martin Truex Jr. has been probably the best Toyota driver consistently for the past year or so now. Hendrick Motorsports really couldn't catch a break all night long. I mean, it started when Chase Elliott made contact with Michael McDowell on pit road, basically ruined his night. And by the way, Chase Elliott fans, I know you guys are upset by that, but that was not Michael McDowell's fault. Jimmy Johnson had pit penalties, had to go to the back, then later on he got spun out in a wreck. That was not his fault. Just a crazy restart late in the race. Gone wrong. Dale Jr. is basically a non-factor, and Casey Kane, I keep forgetting he's racing. Now, one driver who was having an exceptionally good night was Danica Patrick. Danica has historically been pretty good at Kansas Speedway in the past. She ran top 15 for most of the race and was knocking on the door and actually I think in the top 10 at some point when the big blow of the evening occurred. On lap, I think it was 200 out of 267, there was that big fiery crash heading into turns 1 and 2 between Joey Logano, Danica Patrick, and of course Aric Almirola. Heading into turn 1, it looked like Joey Logano blew a tire. It looked like he might have blown a tire at first. They later said they think a rotor broke or something like that. Caused him to spin into Danica. They both turned and Danica hit the outside wall really hard. It was a very hard crash. Probably the hardest crash we've seen this season, especially one involving multiple drivers. Aric Almirola trying to slow down, got into debris. It looked like he got into oil or something from the wreck and slid up into the accident going pretty darn fast. Big impact for the 43 car, and we all know, or most of us hopefully know, unfortunately injured Aric Almirola's back. Aric Almirola had to be assisted from the race car. They had to cut open the roof to lift him out, put him on a stretcher. He was, he's okay in the grand scheme of things, but it then later came out he has a compression fracture in his back, so he will be out for the foreseeable future, which obviously really sucks when any driver in NASCAR does get injured. I think a lot of us fans, I know myself personally, I think we all become just so relaxed nowadays when we see any sort of wreck because of all the safety advancements they've made in the last decade or so, or last 2 decades now. Just we see a hard crash and we honestly just expect everyone to be perfectly okay afterwards. But we've seen more in recent years now with the concussions coming into play, with Dale Jr. and other drivers having concussions to be worried about, or even when Kyle Busch broke his legs and was out for a while in the Xfinity wreck, or even a few years ago when Denny Hamlin hurt his back at that wreck in Fontana. We do still see small incidences cause big problems. But it's just interesting because then we do see wrecks like, you guys remember the Coke 0400 at Daytona in July of 2015. You guys remember the big wreck with Austin Dillon up into the catch fence. Like, I can't believe that he was not injured in that wreck. You look at something like that, and then you see a more, not to say this wreck at Kansas was routine by any means. Like I said, that was probably a couple of the hardest hits I've seen all season. But then to see that cause us serious problems as it did, it's very random. And of course, we got to compliment the safety NASCAR it has implemented over the years, especially more recently. Those cars are incredibly safe, so it is sort of surprising when people do get hurt, but it's not to be unexpected when these cars are going 200 miles an hour. We forget that sometimes, I think. Richard Petty Motorsports announced, actually on Wednesday, the day I'm filming this, that Regan Smith will be driving that 43 car in the play-in race for this All-Star weekend later this weekend. But as of the time I'm recording this, they might announce it either the day this comes out or Friday or something. No permanent replacement has been announced yet for Almirola as he misses time in the future here. Hopefully he gets well soon. Hopefully we're able to see him back in that blue 43 car sooner rather than later. Best wishes to him. In the meantime, looking ahead to the All-Star Race this weekend, the All-Star Race I've always kind of thought is the type of race that favors a certain type of driver. The All-Star Race never really seems to favor the kind of consistent, cool, calm drivers that, the big races favor. The All-Star Race always seems to favor the drivers who are more willing to take very risky, very sudden, very drastic moves to try and get whatever position they need. I feel like drivers like Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, maybe even Joey Logano, maybe Hamlin I might throw in there, guys now rookies like Larson, maybe Chase Elliott. I feel like it favors that driving, the short burst, sprint to the finish driving style, a little bit more than the kind of laid back, kind of more calm, slow and steady wins the race kind of strategy we see from drivers like Kurt Busch or Matt Kenseth or even kind of Martin Truex Jr. at times. Although I say that, and Jimmy Johnson's won a bunch of All-Star races, and I'd kind of I always think of him more as the cool, calm, consistent driver. So maybe I'm horribly wrong. I could be. Honestly, my favorite part of the All-Star race weekends last couple of years at least have been the qualifying, where they have the drivers running laps, but then they have to come onto pit road at like almost full speed and do pit stops. It's hilarious to watch. And in the All-Star race, since it is such a short sprint to the finish, qualifying can be very, very, very important. And since this is the first ever Monster Energy NASCAR All-Star race, they pulled out some tweaks like I mentioned earlier. I think there's going to be 4 different segments. Like I said, they're going to give each team a set of softer tires, which will add grip, add speed to the cars, but you're only allowed to have one of those sets per car in the race. So teams are going to have to decide when they think that is most useful. I have no idea whether or not that will make the racing any better, any more exciting, but I tend to think it will at least add some variation to it. It'll add another dimension to the way the race has to be called, the way the race is run, and ultimately probably how it finishes up. But in the end, this is just the All-Star race. All they're doing is racing for money and for fun and for glory, I guess. So it's not anything to worry too much about. Teams like Joe Gibbs Racing have many other things to worry about right now than this All-Star race. Anyway, that's about all I have for this week's show. Not a lot to talk about. Fairly short. Keeping it pretty short. Thank you guys for watching, as always. Should be a lot more to talk about leading up to next week's Coca-Cola 600. Big, Memorial Day? What weekend is that? A big weekend for a lot of racing. You guys can follow me on Twitter at DECS Racing. You can check out my Patreon. I have Cafe Press. I have stores, stuff. I have Out of the Groove shirts for sale. Hats, I think, as well. Just a lot of fun stuff. You can check that out as well. You guys can follow me on Twitter at DECS Racing. You can check out my Patreon. I have Cafe Press. I have stores, stuff. I have Out of the Groove shirts for sale. Hats, I think, as well. Just a lot of fun stuff. You can check that out as well. W Cup Series Season 8 is beginning. It is now. I'm on the clock. I need to go and start working on that right now and keep it rolling. So summer is officially here for me, so I will be working on videos a lot, mostly NASCAR related, and I'm gonna keep that rolling. So thanks for your support as always, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to y'all next week. Have a good All-Star race weekend, everybody. Okay, we're done. I'm gonna stand up. Oh yeah. I'm gonna not trip on all these wires. Still gotta unpack some of these boxes. My goodness, I'm really messy.